Hello, this is Professor Lucien, and this is my lecture 12 on ergonomics and the cost of musculoskeletal disorders. This lecture, I'm actually going to combine two guest lectures that I've had in this course in the past, both by friends of mine who work in the insurance business. One is, the first one will be by Jim Jones with United Heartland. The second one is Angela Banerjee with Acuity. They have a lot of different slides here, but I'm going to go through them fairly quickly. You probably should have heard of ergonomics. There is no ergonomic standard with OSHA. There was one for a very short period of time, like in 1999 through 2000. It was like available for like 2 months, and then it got repealed. So the drive for identifying and reducing musculoskeletal disorders is more financial. And if you recall, the frequency of musculoskeletal disorders, which we could call strain, sprain, or overexertion type injuries, that they tend to be going down, whereas all other forms of cause, the top 5, tend to be going up. So we're going to look at the cost of them and ways in which we can correct it. I am going to provide a link to OSHA's ergonomic information page and look at some citations, but I want you to watch the videos on Canvas. One looks at exoskeleton use to reduce upper body injuries. The other is a wearable technology, which is supposed to help trunk or back type injuries. So, first of all, here's a definition. There'll be definitions, I think, around every corner. Ergonomics, basically the study of work, or designing the work to fit the worker versus hiring someone and having them adapt to what the job might be. Oh, look at, he said the same thing. So Jim provides his resources here. Lifting and lowering injuries can be about 26,000, holding and carrying about 22.5, pushing, pulling about 29.8, reaching and bending 16, finally repetitive motion about 15,000. These are a bit high, on the high end. And if you'll recall from earlier lectures, the actual Wisconsin Department of Workforce Development numbers are quite a bit lower than this, though they tend to be higher than others. Because they're soft tissue, and so they take time to heal. There's re-aggravation is a common thing. And so, yeah, they tend to be indemnified or lost. So this is from 2015 numbers. You can kind of see that strains are far above. But as we saw from the national statistics, they seem to be going down at a greater rate than others. They tend to be OSHA recordable for a number of reasons. When workers are fatigued or they're sore or they're in pain, they tend to not work as hard, or they can get upset. Places that don't take care of workers, there's high turnover. That's more of a fairness, equity thing. But if you're going to have a physically demanding job, you better hire someone who's able to do physical work. So ergonomics needs to be basically customized. It needs to be built within. He talks about outside consultants. When you bring them in, sure, they can do some of the work, but it's like you got to be there more. You got to really engage the workers to understand it from their perspective. There are issues with making changes to the work environment. Some workers reject it even though it's better for them. And some people, again, just full out, it only takes one problem and they completely reject, an approach. They don't give it time. So Jim covered all kinds of stuff here. You can have an ergonomics team, but then every team member needs to be trained. But sometimes that's a good thing. I think workers tend to be somewhat ingenious or innovative, but they should be paired up with someone who has expertise in the area. Then you can really find cool improvements. Here's an example of the team he'd assemble. So, identify risk factors. That's always the first thing. You can tell by sometimes the positioning of workers, or whether they're standing or leaning forward or having to push heavy things. One thing I look for when I do walk-arounds is for when people are stretching out their back or stretching out their shoulders or flexing their hand. What they're doing is they're fatiguing the different, muscle groups. And so I try to find out what's going on. If I see someone wearing functional splinting, whether it was prescribed by a physician or a healthcare professional or not. Find out why. I look at the tools they use, the positioning of it. There's a lot of things that can raise red flags as far as where the risk factors are. And then your solutions should be incorporated into the work itself. And that's where it's the study of work or fitting the work to the worker. You're redesigning the work, not necessarily. I've heard people say, oh, I'm going to teach people to sit better. I'm going to teach people to stand better. I'm going to teach people to move things closer to them. They sit, they stand, and they hold their work. They place their work in front of them the way they place the work in front of them. You got to redesign the work itself to make it easier for them and not have them to try to figure it out. And I know some places don't understand that. So here's some right here. This is obviously an awkward posture. This is going to be hard on the person. It'd be better if this, whatever's on the ground, was at a higher place, or you used technology to get it off the floor. I'm not going to talk about the NIOSH lifting equation. There are so many issues with it. They say the maximum amount you can lift is 51 pounds, and that's basically right in front of you and not moving it anywhere without twisting. It's just not realistic. But sometimes they can help you identify what is the most critical aspect of a lift or task. So here you can see the zones. Green means that's the area you want to work in. That's your power zone. Yellow is caution, and red is considered risky. Postures are a big thing too. Leaning really weird at your desk or having uneven armrests. All these things can cause fatigue and strain on different muscle groups, and it's not an instantaneous thing. It's over time. Cradling a phone even can cause neck strain and shoulder strain and things like that. It's better to keep moving than holding a static posture. It's not good to sit all day. It's not good to stand all day. You need a good mix, a good balance of everything. This is self-explanatory. I've been talking about this. Eliminate, you don't have to worry about when it's down to PP and training. There are still plenty of issues. So how do we lift? We tend to bend forward. Why? Because in our brain, it takes less energy to lean forward to the ground to pick something up versus bending the knees. What's interesting is if you watch children who are just able to walk, when they pick something up, they bend at the knees. Why? Because of their gargantuan head. That it's easier to just squat down, and that's a safer position because you put more stress on the L5, S1 vertebrae when you lean forward. I know I'm going off on a lot of stuff, but I've been doing ergonomics for 25 years, and I like the new technologies and techniques. This older stuff, I could give or take it. So instead of having people use their own mechanical energy to lift things, you can use vacuum aided lifts or retractable things or conveyor rollers or spin tables or anything like that. Anything that makes it so people don't have to reach down to the ground to pick something up or pick up something that's really heavy and twist with it, because those are the primary causes of injury. So I just mentioned turntables or turn carts. This is scissor lift or scissor tables. So the height can adjust as needed for the work, and this is usually for filling things like a pallet or something else. Pictures and videos are good ways to evaluate body postures when you're looking at risks. But as you can see, adjustability is the key to ergonomics. Team lifts are not that popular. Training, more or less knowing the best way to lift or what not to lift, or to be able to grab the right equipment at the right time is probably the most thing. A back belt, even though we're taught younger, wear a back belt when you're in the gym doing squats. It doesn't provide that much protection. It's meant to provide, it's meant to distribute the stress on the L5, S1 vertebrae, because the inner abdominal region is kind of clinched together with the belt, and so it's meant to disperse it. But wearing something properly to do that also increases the pressure on your heart and lungs. So your blood pressure goes up, the heart has to beat a little bit harder, and so If you're doing a heavy lift under those circumstances, if if your body's not used to that kind of strain, it can exacerbate a heart issue or a respiratory issue, and it doesn't really help. That's what the research has shown. You should do a full job hazard analysis or job safety analysis, which is very similar to an ergonomic analysis. You can review videos because then you don't have to stand there and bother the worker. Let's see, what else? Oh, talking about Dr. Gard over at UW Milwaukee, very well known in this field. It's showing, depending on where the position is compared to the body, what it does to the back. It's just showing the different torques. I mean, you saw the zone. That's all you need. So here they're just going to do I'm not going to have you do the calculations. This is old ergonomics. Don't really like it. Here's a NIOSH lifting equation. You can plug it in and do it. YouTube videos, resources, closing. I hope you got out of that what I needed you to. When you watch the videos I've provided you, it's pretty awesome. I believe in this video, Angela goes a little bit more into depth with the costs of things, because that was kind of the point of it. Why do people do unsafe things? So she's getting into the psychology of it. It's either they don't see it, they're complacent with it, never trained, rushed. This is a good way to start it, because people don't mean to strain a muscle. They just don't know the full capabilities or what doing the task could do to them. Something you gain with experience, really. So we're going to go over some stuff here. So there's different words for it. Musculoskeletal disorder is the most common. Cumulative trauma disorder, or CTD. Repetitive motion injuries, RMI. Repetitive stress injuries, RSI. I'm guessing, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And it tends to be all these different biological systems here. Muscles, nerves, tendons, ligaments, joints, cartilage, spine. Carpal tunnel syndrome is when you're compressing the medial nerve in your wrist. Tendinitis, I believe, is a inflammation of tendons. Tenosynovitis is when the fluid that lubricates the tendons through the tendon sheaths causes a bump, a painful bump. I'm not gonna be a doctor and read what all these things are. I think you kind of get the idea. Yeah, all these different factors cause discomfort. None more than when somebody tries to pick something up and it just strains something immediately. But I think maybe you're not old enough to know this, but at my age, like on the weekends when I'm working in the garage or in the yard or in the garden or doing something, while I'm doing the task, it's okay. But then later, my muscles and my body are telling me, dude, ibuprofen, beer, go to bed because you're in a lot of pain and you're going to be in pain tomorrow. And so work hardening or work conditioning for new workers is a good option for minimizing these things. Another is to rotate workers, so they're not using the same movements or muscle groups. They can use different ones throughout the day. These are both things that don't cost a lot, so it just takes some planning. So pain, swelling, numbness or tingling, loss of strength, even fatigue. Fatigue is a really good predictor of a musculoskeletal disorder because you're tired and you're still trying to overdo something. I mean, overexertion is the overuse of the function of, a muscle group or a tendon or a ligament. If you're pinching nerves, you're going to have numbness and tingling, sometimes pain and discomfort. So ergonomics is fitting the work to the worker. Here she's providing a breakdown of 5 years of work comp data. So these are a little bit more realistic, I believe. Yeah, look at. So strength from lifting about just under 16 grand, pushing, pulling about 20. So these are a little bit lower than what Jim had shared. And the price tends to be going down because we're getting better with the use of whether it's sports medicine or sports massage or physical therapists or occupational therapists, and redesigning the work instead of redesigning the person. And so I think that's why musculoskeletal incidents are going down. And she's giving some average cost per claim as far as what you'd want to use in order to justify investment in equipment. It's better to, modify the work so they never have to bend down to pick something up. Get your mind out of the gutter. or using technology so they don't have to do a lot of repetitive work or put torque into something which could overuse a certain body system. And here she's given us some more numbers. This is all really great stuff. That was from construction. Construction is very labor intensive, and so you're going to have a lot of MSDs there. There's a thing published in 2016 that ergonomic injuries account for about 33% of all cases. And I mean, you could look back to our earlier lecture to find out if that's true. Here it gives some average costs in manufacturing. Strains truckers even do when they're getting in and out of the cab. There's a slip or a strain that can happen, or when they're actually doing delivery type work. So there are quantitative and qualitative practice. I tend to be more qualitative because I want to hear from the person how they feel when they're interacting with the technology or the environment of their work versus taking measures. Now, this is the quantitative. You can learn this if you take the ergonomics class here. I tend to not use this stuff anymore. I did when I was in grad school because I know how, but I like the qualitative. It's just basically using worksheets and videos and pictures and distances and movements, and you can calculate torques or static loads and things like that. Not the way I like to do it. I like to talk to the person and find out how they feel, because what I want to do is be able to match up what they're feeling to what I'm seeing as far as all those different risk factors. And I've done ergonomic assessments or work environment assessments for people who were hard of hearing or completely deaf, or had vision problems or completely blind, people who just came back from back surgery. So I've had to do a lot of work when it comes to designing either an office environment or a workstation, whether it's assembly or whether they're an operator for a process, to attempt to control or minimize those stressors. Their hips and legs hurt because they're standing on concrete. Well, you can get them better footwear, and you can get them anti-fatigue matting, so it doesn't transfer. So the weight of the body doesn't transfer from the feet up into the hips. It's a little bit more cushiony. Or you get a sit-stand pole. So it's not a bar stool that you jump up on, but something you can lean back on. Or sit-stand workstations, so people can be seated and working, or it can be raised up and they can stand. It's more about motion and not trying to overexert within a particular position or particular task, but keep it variable. I mean, even here during the day, when I'm working from home, I don't have the greatest seat or the greatest setup here, but I kind of watch the clock. Every in 40 to 50 minutes, I try to get up and walk around and go do something. All workers should just do that, because it gives your body a chance to breathe. Back belts don't work. Oh, this is the old office stuff. People used to measure the popliteal height. And sure, there is something to sitting back in your chair so you can utilize as lumbar support, but as long as the person is moving around, it's okay. I used to always say that if you're a fidgeter, if you fidget, you never really have a problem because you're always moving around. Yeah, these things aren't as important as they used to be. This is very low-hanging fruit. Yeah, risk deviations, that can be an issue, but it tends to be, an issue over time. Obviously not my hand. Organization of your work environment is important too. Here we really see no adjustability. This person probably is experiencing issues. Not a bad looking chair. Look at who sees the butt crack? You could store his dip in there. You can see these guys are all exerting themselves in awkward positions, and so this is straining on those muscles. Yeah, concrete work is heavy. I've done concrete before. This looks like it's in a door factory. So a person's reaching all the way down to the floor. They're bending at the waist, so it's putting all of the upper body weight in the work you're doing into the L5S1. It'd be better to have a lift station here. And here, that should be angled. She caught a lot of positioning. It'd be interesting to talk to these people to find out at the end of the day or midday, are you sore? Are you experiencing any of the symptoms of cumulative trauma? Looks like they're getting better here. This looks like some angling. Oh, something so they don't have contact stress. That's good. They've got the towel there. So it's because it's more comfortable. And if you walk around a plant, look for things like that workers have done to manipulate their work environment to feel more comfortable, because maybe there's even a better way you can adjust things for them. He's putting his feet on things because if your legs dangle, it's like the bar stool syndrome. Your feet get a little bit numb. It's really uncomfortable. If you can put something down to put your foot on, you can alleviate that pressure on the back of the leg. And they're just showing more instances of people sitting. You see like the angle of the neck to the shoulders to the back. If you're leaning down too far, that can even give you a headache, because there's like a strain over the top of your brain helmet. So these are just, she's showing us different things that, look at that seat, whole roll of duct tape. Really should replace that. Different things workers do so they can get their job done. Oh, that's nice. It's well labeled. Here, we don't know if it's a push or a pull. I think she's it's a push. So Angela did a really great job. Appreciate her doing that for me. I'm going to show you an OSHA citation for ergonomics. Now, there is no standard, therefore OSHA has to cite general duty clause. So we'll get to the first citation. They actually cited ergonomics quite a bit here using general duty. So 1.1, the general duty clause, which is 5A1, and it talks about due to musculoskeletal disorders. And then they give, this deboning. So that must be a meatpacking plant. Meatpacking plants, some financial institutions, healthcare, all these things have a lot of musculoskeletal issues. And so there's been focused inspections. They talk about abatement. Can you say how much it was? Oh, look at all this information. This is a long citation. Oh, man. $7,000. And it was in 2015, so just 5 years ago. So that was the max in that year. Another 5A1, again with ergonomics. So that's 2 ergonomics. That one's a little bit shorter, but it's still at $7,000. This is another 5A1. It is still ergonomics. Falling off a rack. Felt the damage. Oh, this is a contact stress, but they're using it. Is this one? Okay, this is a walking working surfaces. This is PPE. It's more PPE. 141. Not sure what that one is. 147 is lockout tagout. This is machine guarding. It was 212. 147 lockout tagout. Record keeping because it was 1904. That was 1,100, and the total $102,000 at Wayne Farms. So they must do their own meat cutting. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there was one last thing, and that is the OSHA ergonomics page. It's going to be fairly basic. I'm seeing some of the same language and information that we had from both Angela and Jim. So you can check that out, but definitely watch these 2 videos about the exoskeleton. They take you to a Ford plant and they show you this is the future. This is where we are now. And then Soda Spine. That's a wearable technology and kind of detects the angle of your back and lets you know when you're exhibiting an unsafe, awkward posture. So pretty cool stuff. Let me know if you have any questions. We have other classes on ergonomics, but I just wanted to hit like the main points because it's an expensive type of injury and it's the most frequent at this point, but I think we're getting better at it, better than any of the other causes.